Welcome to another episode of Mike's Expat Kitchen, where we cook German dishes with American ingredients. Today's dish is not exactly German, but it reminds me of the time when we moved from Munich to San Francisco, and we had this restaurant on 24th Street called Savory, which had a menu item called the San Francisco Crepe. And I loved that crepe. It contained salmon and spinach, and it was just so good. Apparently some kind of California fusion food that I enjoyed coming from Germany. So we're going to cook that today. Here's what we need to cook San Francisco crepe as dinner for two. I peeled one medium-sized onion that we're only going to use half of. For the crepes, we're going to use 6 ounces of regular flour. For the salmon, I used this 12-ounce pack of smoked salmon from Costco. By the way, some people have commented that all of my ingredients come from Costco and Trader Joe, which is of course not true. And for the spinach I use is ready-to-cook spinach from Trader Joe's. Okay, you got me there. And also for the dough that makes the crepes, we need 2 fresh eggs. Let's start by dicing the onion. We need half of a medium-sized one, so that amounts to about 4 ounces. The Costco salmon comes in a 2-pack, which we're only going to use one 12-ounce one. And it comes pre-sliced, so we just need to take it out of the bag and cut it into stripes. Don't cut it too small and try to keep it in bite-sized chunks. Also try to not make too much of a mess. I figured it's usually best to keep it on that plate that comes with the pack. And then scrape it off in one swoop. That baby spinach already comes pre-cut and washed, so let's give it another quick rinse and let it drip off completely. Make sure there's no water remaining on the spinach, but you don't want watery crepes. Now let's get to the dough for the crepes. We're going to use about 6 ounces of regular flour and a little bit of salt. About half a teaspoonful should be fine. Then crack open 2 eggs and put them on the flour. Now we're ready to mix up the dough using a hand mixer with the regular hooks attached. Add some water until the dough reaches the desired consistency. I've found that using carbonated water works a little bit better than regular water because it makes the dough fluffier. And regarding the consistency, make sure that the dough is easy flowing. The thicker the dough, the thicker your crepes are going to get. If you want really thin crepes, then the dough needs to be easy flowing. So what I got here is somewhere between a pancake and a really thin, crispy crepe. Now let's get cooking. Heat up about a tablespoon of cooking oil in a non-stick pan on the medium to high setting. Dump in the diced onions and cook them until they've taken on some color. Try not to burn them and add some more oil if required. Then add the smoked salmon pieces and let them also take on some color, but make sure to not cook it entirely because the salmon is already smoked and just needs to combine with the onions. Also keep stirring the pieces very carefully to make sure that they are not broken into smaller chunks. Then add the spinach leaves and sprinkle them with a fair amount of salt. Keep stirring the mix very gently and wait until the spinach starts wilting. As soon as you see that happening, remove everything from the pan and put it into a separate plastic bowl. Okay, now for the grapes. Clean out the pan entirely, put in some more oil and even some butter for a good taste. And now comes the moment of truth. Grab the pre-prepared dough and start pouring it into the pan. You'll see that I'm pouring only as much dough in there until about a third of the pan is covered, and then I start tilting it to cover everything, adding a little bit of dough as necessary. This part will definitely take some practice until you get the crepe surface to be entirely smooth. And although I'm using a non-stick pan here, the crepe tends to stick to the bottom, so you can use a spatula in order to loosen it up. Okay, now when the crepe has taken on some brown color on the bottom side, it's time to flip it. And although it's perfectly fine to use a spatula for that, it's way more fun to flip it in the air, and that's done by first making sure that the crepe is sitting very loosely in the pan, and then tilting it upwards and pulling it towards you at the same time so that the crepe shoots out of the pan in a circular motion. It's definitely something you need to practice a lot, and you might have some accidents, but give it a try. It's fun. Okay, now to make sure the crepe doesn't burn on the bottom side, add some more oil and give it a good swirl. After a minute of baking, It'll take on some brown color on the bottom side again, and it is ready to be removed from the pan. Put it on an extra plate so that we save it for later, because of course we're gonna need the pan for the second crepe. Make sure it's relatively clean and there's no brown spots stuck at the bottom. Put some oil in and also add a little bit of butter, because as everybody knows, the secret to French cooking is butter, but don't overdo it unless it's going to be a little bit heavy on the waistline. Pour in the remaining dough and start tilting the pan so that the dough can flow all the way around and create a smooth surface. Almost perfect this time, but I guess a little bit more practice would help. Let's see if I can flip it in the air this time without making too much of a mess. Making sure the crepe is very loose in the pan, giving it a good tilt, trying once, trying twice, see the flare in the background, and the third time is a charm. Let that brown on the other side as well, and then let's add our salmon spinach mix. So just to recap, we want to make 2 savory crepes. This is the first one, the other one is on the extra plate. So we're adding our salmon spinach mix to only 1/2 of the crepe, and add also a little bit of grated cheese. I use mozzarella here because I had that lying around. Sprinkle a few ounces on top of the salmon, and then flip over the crepe to make room for the extra crepe that we're gonna prepare in a second. Careful there, do not destroy our delicate structure and make it look appetizing. Here comes the other one. Do the same thing, add the salmon and spinach mix, and also add a little bit of mozzarella on top. Keep it in the pan for another minute, and then we're ready to plate our crepes. Lift it out of the pan really slow and use the plate as a second spatula if required. Here comes the second one, and the dinner is ready to serve. As for drinks, red wine would work well, as long as it's not too bold to overpower the salmon. But also white wine or beer is fine. Guten Appetit. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more episodes of Mike's Expat Kitchen, consider subscribing to the channel.